foolish mortals.
Hello there. Are you insane? Get out of here!
Remain seated with your seatbelt fastened.
Right, off you go.
Welcome to Average Joe Orlando. Hello, theme park goers. Welcome to another episode of Average Joe Orlando, a theme park podcast. I'm your host, Joe, and today we are going to be diving into our front row review and advice on Universal Orlando summer offerings. So as I mentioned in our previous episode, each week of the month we will be deep diving into something different. Starting off the month with our average, not so average list. It's not an average list, it's a not so average list. Followed by our front row review and advice, which is this episode. These are determined basically to give you advice on what we think is the best to do at the parks, or maybe an event or a cruise. And then also with our review, give our opinions on some things that happened as well as some do's and some don'ts if you are planning on visiting and checking it out. The following week after that will always be our deep dive, looking into more of a history of something, and then ending the month, rounding it out with a recap of what happened in the theme park world this past month, and then looking ahead to the following. But with that, let's get started on today's episode. So Universal Orlando's summer offerings. Usually every summer at the theme parks, there is always something coming out. Trying to compete with each other. Disney and Universal compete, then SeaWorld will throw something new. It's a way to draw new crowds in. A lot of theme parks do this each year to have what is their new offering this year, and it always comes out in the spring or summer. For Universal, it's been a weird one the past few years since a lot of their money has been going over to Epic Universe, their new park. So we kind of been seeing a little bit slower things coming out. For instance, last summer was Minion Land, which is essentially just retheming the street name, and then adding the VillainCon attraction, which is a slow-moving sidewalk attraction. So more of a one-for-one. This year we were getting Dreamworks Land was the big announcement, which would be the first thing that I'm talking about for the summer offerings, which honestly I felt was more of a one-for-one swap. So if you don't know, Dreamworks Land replaced the old Kids Zone area back in the corner where E.T. is, or the Animal Actors, which is essentially the big kids area of the park. Universal has always been known of not being super kid-friendly, and in the past few years have been doing more for kids, such as the VillainCon area, and doing more Minion Land and everything. So Dreamworks Land replaced the Woody Woodpecker roller coaster. You also had the Fievel Land, which I loved because there was a water slide in there, and then the Curious George Ball Factory, and then there was the Day in the Park with Barney, which never reopened after COVID. They did more of a trial DreamWorks show. So Dreamworks Land was set to replace all that. What we ended up getting was essentially the same exact land, but with more DreamWorks stickers slapped onto it. Granted, anything is an upgrade because it is newer IPs, and if you go back there now, it is always busy. So when you walk in, it used to be the Fievel area. Now it's Shrek's Swamp, which is definitely, I would say, a downgrade from what we had prior. You did have a awesome Fievel Goes Westland with a water slide, very detailed area. Unfortunately, kids really don't know who Fievel is, so Shrek is definitely an upgrade for kids. However, overall, it definitely looks like a budget cut area, a little bit more like a McDonald's play place. However, has some new food offerings. The Shrek meet and greet is back, which is amazing. You also have some special meet and greets in the front. They've created a whole area for Gabby's Dollhouse, and then they have another area for rotating characters. So any area that can put more characters is fantastic. You also have the next session, which is Trolls. So Trolls, huge IP for them. I've watched all three, and I liked all three, mostly 1 and 3. 2's all right. But it's a good little upgrade over there just because it was Woody Woodpecker. They were able to retheme the roller coaster, add in a new boombox with some more Trolls ride, replace the fountain, have Trolls meet and greets. Also, the theater that once housed the Day in the Park with Barney now has a new DreamWorks show, which is a bit of an upgrade from what they had prior, where they had during COVID a dance party show. So that's a nice little upgrade. And then the back area where it was Curious George is now Kung Fu Panda. To me, this was the biggest downgrade, I want to say, out of the whole area. Curious George used to have this big water splash area. It's definitely much smaller now. Used to have the Ball Factory where It has different blasters, and you would be able to put foam balls in, and it was always busy in there. However, now it's just a interactive show. The show is great. I don't want to undermine that one. So if you ever watch Turtle Talk with Crush over at Epcot, very similar to that. However, even more technology forward, I would say, like, you could see Poe picking up items and pointing to things and more interacting with his digital elements as well as with the guest. So it is great. It just stinks that we had to lose such a deeply themed area for something that's a little more bare bones. I definitely hope when Universal is able to go back to this after Epic opens, they're even able to add more to this area and just keep beefing up this area, maybe even throwing in another dark ride, which it definitely desperately needs. But overall, Dreamworks Land, pretty good. It has what you were expecting. Basically, if you like the old area, you'll like this one because it's the same thing, just with new IPs slapped onto it. Literally, most of them are stickers. The next summer offering that I'm going to discuss is the Summer Tribute Store. So the Tribute Stores started out as something that Universal created for Halloween Horror Nights as the Halloween Horror Nights Tribute Store. They expanded them to the different events such as the Holiday Tribute Store, the Mardi Gras Tribute Store, and then the Summer Tribute Store. So the Tribute Stores always started out as this super in-depth limited time store that had these amazing themes. Each room had a different storyline. You walk through these great big sets. They had special merchandise in there. It was always more of an experience where they had merchandise as well. And it felt like it was something for the pass holders and for the locals because it usually played into something from the past or into a deep storyline as well. All the tribute stores have been great. Last year was the Jurassic Park tribute store, which created a lot of different photo ops. You actually had the toilet scene where you could take a picture sitting on the toilet and the big Tyrannosaurus Rex coming through. You had the kitchen scene. They usually have great photo ops, but they also usually have some really good Easter eggs to either old attractions or rides or experiences in the park, and then also usually offer different Easter eggs to different things that are to come in future tribute stores as well. Now, the locations have switched throughout the years. Usually it's in the Mummy extended queue over in the New York section, or now they expanded into the Hollywood section, and it seems to be going back and forth, probably because they do take so long to build with all the details. They're able to overlap them a little closer. My best guess is that since this one is in the Hollywood section of the park, the Halloween one, which will be opening up soon, will be over in New York, just because they could start building that one while this one is still operating, and they don't need to close them and be down for longer, which obviously results in different loss in revenue. So this summer tribute store really plays well into the Mega Movie Parade and the Cinesational nighttime show. It seems that they kind of tied everything into more of a retro 90s kind of look. So the summer tribute store is called the Summer Tribute Plaza, or the Tribute Plaza, and it features 3 different rooms. Each room is something very out of the 90s. So you start off with a video rental store, and the video rental store features different old I would say icons from different I don't like wow, how do I even put this out? Halloween Horror Nights lore. So Halloween Horror Nights has great storylines, great things going on, but you have the videos on the wall, which are actually a lot from some of the old haunted houses. So you might recognize some of the videos from being from the Slaughterhouse Cinema house from a few years ago, which we're getting a sequel to this year. There's also a lot of different things for Jaws, Back to the Future, E.T., and then you go into the next room, which is an arcade. So it's very reminiscent. I think of it more as Stranger Things Season 2 arcade. It has the old 90s floor. There's little Easter eggs to Halloween Horror Nights. Then the last room you go into is supposed to be an old movie theater with all the different, looks like a local theater, if you remember those from when you grew up. More of a local theater where they build their own dioramas on the top of all the different things such as Ghostbusters and Jaws and E.T., and it has the Universal Fanfare going and Back to the Future. Overall, my favorite tribute store to date. It has that nostalgia, that classic feel. Every time I go in there, I feel like I see something new. When you look behind the counter, you kind of see things from Beetlejuice or Earl the Squirrel, who is in the lore of their holidays. You also have Bill and Ted's phone booth out front, which just gives me hope for Bill and Ted to come back to Halloween Horror Nights one day. there's so much in there to look at. It is basically Universal creating this for their pass holders and for the guests that go there for that retro feel, who miss Back to the Future, who miss Jaws, who miss all the older rides that used to be there, the Ghostbusters show. It really feels like it's more of, hey, we know that we can't bring back these attractions, but we still remember them, we still miss them, and they were still a big part of our story. Which also goes over to the Mega Movie Parade. Now, the Mega Movie Parade is their newest parade. They did close their other one, I want to say right after COVID or during COVID. They had a daytime parade which featured different units such as SpongeBob, Despicable Me, Dora the Explorer. It was originally Hop, and then it went over to Secret Life of Pets. So it was more of a daytime parade geared more towards children. This is their Mega Movie Parade, which premiered on July 3rd in technical rehearsals because it wasn't quite ready yet, but features more of the best of Universal's movies of past and present. And it has this great tie-in of old movies as well as new movies, but kind of combines them and gives everybody the same amount of love. We start off with Back to the Future with this amazing prop from Back to the Future. You have the DeLorean and the clock tower and the music, and you have Doc Brown and Marty McFly. Now, Doc Brown does meet in the park still today, but to see Marty McFly in the park was pretty amazing. And then you get tied into other old attractions as well. Just, for example, the Jaws unit is a whole 4th of July in Amity, which is actually what the old area used to be. So if you know where Diagon Alley is in the park now, that used to be a perpetual 4th of July celebration in Amity. So it ties in the old land in the park, it ties in the movie, and it also ties in the ride. You actually have the mayor walking around and telling people it is safe to get back in the water, go swimming. Then you also have all the other characters from the movie. It's just this fantastic kind of retro feel, and the music is fantastic. You get the old Jaws music tied in with the Universal fanfare. We have E.T. where the bikes are flying. You have Jurassic Park along with Jurassic World, but then also Trolls, Sing, etc. like that. So it's also a lot of the new intertwined with the old. Now, Universal definitely has spent a lot of money on this. It's going to be interesting to see if it comes back next year. As of now, it's going to be running through November. And then it'll pick up with the holiday parade, and then most likely Mardi Gras, and then hopefully this one will come back as well. So they constantly have parades going on. But overall, Mega Movie Parade, I would say huge hit, and I think a huge surprise for everybody as well, of how good it is, how much money Universal has spent on it, and how for something that we just figured, oh, it's going to be a small summer, all of a sudden they're tying in everything all together. Also debuting this summer is Cinesational, a symphonic spectacular. They're not giving words easy to say. So Cinesational really ties in with the Mega Movie Parade and the Summer Tribute Store as more of a love letter to all the music from all those movies. Universal has a ton of fantastic movies that they show in the park and are part of the lore of what it used to be and what it is today. They even have, obviously, Harry Potter, which is Warner Brothers, but they still use it. However, this seems like more of a little bit of everything. They also added in for the first time drones. So while a lot of people are like, there wasn't enough drones, this isn't a drone show. This is World of Color meets projections on buildings, meets fireworks, meets drones. So it's a little bit of everything. It's over in their lagoon. So if you don't know, they have a giant lagoon in the park where they've always done nighttime shows. Their most recent one closed after Hurricane Ian actually broke some of the items in there. So it's been closed for years, and it's been drained and going up and down. And you're like, what are they working on? Well, Cinesational. So Cinesational you could view on select nights from the New York Central Park area. And there's really not a bad view in the house. If it is raining or windy, I have heard that the drones will be down for that night, which stink because the drones do add a lot to it. And you get all different things too. So Universal has tied in Trolls, but then the Minions, but then you go into Back to the Future, E.T., King Kong, Ghostbusters. So there's just some of the fantastic classics that are in there, as well as some of the new ones that tie into like the perfect, as theme parks like to call it, the Kiss Goodnight. So if you don't know, Disney coined the Kiss Goodnight as a way to end the night and say a kiss goodnight from ending their day in the park. So this really helps hold guests into the park a little bit later on in the day. If you have something there, guests might not be as up to leaving for dinner or leaving maybe when they're tired. They're going to hold in the park, which also encourages people to eat in the park, spend more money on merchandise in the park, just stay in the park later. So really, it's also a way to make some more money. So you have to spend the money to make the money and keep people in the park. And it worked for me. Can't tell you the last time I stayed in the park till close, unless it was a concert during Mardi Gras season or Halloween Horror Nights. So to stay in the park until it was at 9 o'clock when I saw it, it was just fantastic, the show. And I definitely want to go back, definitely want to see it again, definitely want to get a different angle. There's no bad view. I will tell you later, if you're in the back a little bit, you do miss some of the lower projections. However, obviously the drones are very high up. The one negative side is the drones don't stay up very long. They kind of light up, show the image, and then fade out. I'm assuming this is to save the battery because it is a longer show. However, don't think that you're going to be seeing drones constantly. It's more of the drones are there to add a little bit to it, and everybody's just going to go, oh, at the same time. And that's always the fun part, to hear the crowds kind of react every time the drones do something different. But overall, Cinesational, a fantastic addition. I think I forgot to mention, in the Mega Movie Parade, there's also a whole Ghostbusters unit, which for fans of old school Universal, you might not know this, that over in the New York section, there is the Ghostbusters Firehouse. Currently, Rip Ride Rocket goes through the top part of it. However, that is where the Ghostbusters show used to be, later replaced by Twister, then now Jimmy Fallon. But that's a nice tie-in to have Ghostbusters back in the park after all these years. The Ghostbusters had a show with Beetlejuice back in the day. Fun fact, Wayne Brady was in it. Looked that up, and I thought that was pretty neat too. But there's a lot of Ghostbusters back in the day in the park. It's fun to see that the Ghostbusters are back now during the daytime. And then also for Halloween Horror Nights this year, they are returning once again for the new movie. So just gives me hope that maybe one day we'll get a Ghostbusters full-time show again, because that is a great franchise that hopefully will stick around as well. Now, everything that I've spoken about so far is featured in Universal Studios. So for those of you who don't know, you're probably thinking, yeah, no kidding, it's at Universal. Well, there's two parks currently at Universal. There's Universal Studios, or as guests like to think, the one on the right, and then there's Islands of Adventure, or as guests like to think, the one on the left. So when you walk into the park, there's obviously the two ways to go currently, until obviously Epic Universe opens. Then down the block, there's the other park. And don't forget, obviously, of Volcano Bay, their water theme park, which is fantastic, but not in that central area. So over on the right, I mentioned we have Dreamworks Land, which just opened this summer. You have the Summer Tribute Store. Tribute stores are always featured at Universal Studios. The Mega Movie Parade, which all the parades are always featured also over at Universal Studios. None of them have been over at Islands right now. Cinesational, the nighttime show, also at Universal Studios on the Lagoon. Way back in the day, apparently, before I even came to the parks, there was a nighttime show on the water at Islands. I would love to see something like that return, just to keep people in the park. However, right now, what they do to keep people in the park is a projection show with some fireworks in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. And this summer, over at Islands of Adventure, they debuted a new nighttime show on the castle called Hogwarts Always. Now, they've always have done different, They've always have done different shows on the castle. Now, they have rotated throughout the different years, different projection shows, whether it be for the holidays or dark arts for Halloween, where they've had the Death Eaters walk around the village, which now they have the Death Eaters over at Universal Studios and Diagon Alley in the other park. So for those of you who aren't as familiar with Universal, there are two sections currently of Harry Potter. There is Hogsmeade, which, let's break this down really. If you don't know the books or the movie, if you go to Harry Potter, if you're in Hogwarts is the school they go to, it is in Hogsmeade. Now that is the town where the school is, and you have to take the train to get there, platform 9 3/4, and that's why it connects both parks. And you get to platform 9 3/4 through London, which is at the other park. So at Universal Studios, you see London. It's the only theme park land I can think of where you can't even see it, where you have to find it, and you go through the wall and you find Diagon Alley. So Diagon Alley is more so the Wizarding Land where you can get your books from for school, and you can get different items, and it is only for wizards and witches, not for muggles, but obviously you can go there too. So both of them are separate, and they connect by train just like they do in the books and in the movies. However, to take the train, it is considered park hopping, and you do need to have a park-to-park ticket. See, that's where they get you. And if you don't have one, they'll sell you one right before you get on the train, and you could upgrade and pay for it there. And they do have rolling ticket booths out. Now, the train is different going in each direction, so I do recommend taking it both different ways. However, they won't put you in a car by yourself or just your party unless you have 8 people, because it does seat 8 to 10 in one train car. So most likely you're going to be in there with some strangers. So hopefully it's not a stinky summer day. But anyway, over in Hogsmeade at Islands of Adventure, there is a projection show that happens multiple times a night. There are some good parts about it. The good parts are, if you're a Harry Potter fan, there's going to be a lot of great projections on the castle. They really do a great job of mapping out the castle, so it really blends well together. And the music is all Harry Potter. However, it is very tight over there. That area was not clearly built for a nighttime show, and it does get very, very busy. So it might be one of those things you want to catch on a different night. Also, if you're trying to catch both shows in both parks, that's going to be very tricky, especially with timing-wise. So it might be one of those things, one night you have to focus on Hogwarts Always, the other night you might have to focus on Cinesational, just because there are 2 different ones. Hogwarts Always is also much shorter. Those are more continued as like a rolling show to see, not something where you stand there, you camp out, and you wait all night for it like you do over at Epcot. Hogwarts Always is mostly one of those that you show up, you get to see it, and then get out of the land to make room for the next people because it is going to be pretty busy. And that is all of the new summer offerings at Universal. Now for my front row review and advice series. That's a tough one. Front row review and advice. I'm getting better. For the series, I like to end it with do's and don'ts for whatever I'm talking about this week. This week, as I mentioned, Universal summer offerings. Do always arrive early for everything. So if you're going to the Mega Movie Parade, Cinesational, or Hogwarts Always, arrive early, and don't be that person who pushes to the front. Nobody likes anybody who shows up last minute and pushes to the front. Not doing it. I'm from New York originally. You're going to get an elbow. Do check out the stores at off-peak time. So the Summer Tribute Store is fantastic, as I mentioned. However, when the parade is ending or when the end of the night, they're not going to be maybe even open. Just watch those kind of off-peak times. It's also located right across from the Bourne Stuntacular. So as soon as a show dump, and yes, that is the term, a show dump, comes, you're going to get everybody that comes out of that show heading right to there. You're going to get everybody after the parade that heads right to there. Hit that at the off-peak time. And that's for everything. I would always suggest hitting things at off-peak times because it's going to be more enjoyable and you're going to get to see more and you're not going to wait as long in the checkout line. Also, when it comes to merchandise, don't wait to get what you want because it does sell out. I know I wanted a lot of the Jaws merchandise and I'm glad I grabbed it when I did because it does sell out and it will sell out. And a lot of the stuff in the tribute store is seasonal and you won't see it again. They had a store, I want to say it was last summer, and they had the Captain Jake's Amity Boat Tour shirts, which is what the skippers wore on the ride back in the day, and they sold out, and I've never seen that shirt again. And yes, I grabbed it. I will tell you, Universal shirts will shrink after your first one, so always check your sizing because you want to make sure you get something maybe a little bit bigger than you normally wear, because after you wash it once, it might not fit you. And do check always for the summer deals or off-peak days. So Universal has been doing a lot of things with their hotels for Sundays through Thursdays throughout the summer. And then they'll continue different fall deals and then also holiday deals as well. So I would always kind of check. And then you could always cancel and rebook. Universal lets you do it usually about a week in advance. They'll let you change anything. So always check them. You could always call and rebook them and say, hey, I had this one booked. However, I'm seeing this deal. And they will readjust it. I have done that before. And don't buy your tickets at the gate. Not a price reason. It is going to be the same. There's no difference in price usually. However, there's always long lines. And you're going to waste your time standing there waiting for a ticket booth to open when you could just buy everything online prior and bring that QR code up to the front. So that will be your better bet to do. Well, as the summer winds down, hopefully you got to experience some of their summer offerings, or you still plan to, and hopefully some of them continue or come back next year. But we hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I will see you at the parks. Thanks for taking a ride with Average Joe Orlando.
You made it!
I knew you would. Is everyone okay? Hope you still want to open an account.
Say cheese! See you later!
Thanks, everybody. You were brilliant.
At this time, gather up your personal belongings and take your small grubs by their grubby little hands as you exit. Thank you.